This is AUGforums.com Real Talk, an unfiltered, independent perspective on Acumatica Cloud ERP. My name is Tim Rodman, and I want to mention three things in this pre-recorded intro before we get started. First, thank you to our sponsors. Our first sponsor is Repay. Repay offers omni-channel integrated payment solutions for Acumatica users. Whether you are making B2B payments or collecting them, Repay is your full-service payments provider. Power up your payments to empower your business and accelerate the AP and AR payment flow through one seamless integration. Our second sponsor is DataSelf. DataSelf Analytics is a revolutionary reporting solution that enables organizations to make the most informed decisions faster and easier than ever. It uniquely simplifies business intelligence, empowers anyone to build and access dashboards, and delivers critical business insight when and where you need it. Our third sponsor is Velixo. Velixo is an award-winning provider of Excel-based reporting solutions for Acumatica. With Velixo, you can build financial, project, and other business reports in Excel with live Acumatica data in just a few minutes and get the answers you need. If you know Excel, you can do it. Please take a minute to support this podcast by clicking each one of the sponsor banners located at augforums.com/sponsors. Our sponsors track clicks, and every click helps to support this podcast. The second thing I'd like to mention is that I'm always looking for victims. Guests. If you use Acumatica in any capacity, no matter how small, I'd love to talk with you. Check out augforums.com/podcast and click the link near the top of the page to learn more about being a guest on the podcast. Third and finally, I'd love to see you listed on my Rolodex. Check out augforums.com/Rolodex to find out who else is using Acumatica and read the instructions at the top to see how you can add yourself to the list. All right, that's it for the pre-recorded intro. Let's get started. Today is Tuesday, February 15th, 2022, and this is episode number 69. Chris Hackett, Community Manager at Acumatica. Chris, thanks for coming on today.
Sure. Glad to be here, Tim.
So,
Very excited to share about community.
Awesome. Love talking to people about community myself. This should be great. I always like starting off with the origin story of each guest that I have on here. We don't have to go too crazy, but maybe you could start off telling us where did you grow up and where do you live now?
So I grew up your neck of the woods, practically in Cleveland, Ohio. Was there until, I went to college there, actually Bowling Green State University. And then I moved out to California after college, a few years after college, and to Northern California, an area called Santa Rosa, which is about roughly an hour plus north of San Francisco. Had an aunt that lived out here. She'd been bugging family members to come out for years because she came out just husband and two kids and was trying to drag the rest of the clan along. And I finally took the bait and went out. So ended up out here. Love it. Been out here ever since. And actually started taking courses when I came out here in graphic design. That wasn't what I went to college for. It was more business stuff, but I got interested in graphic design. And started working as a restaurant manager just to make some money as I was going through those courses, and eventually got more interested in the computer part of graphic design and ended up working for the restaurant, Chevy's Mexican Restaurants, as a help desk person. So joined their corporate office, eventually moved up in IT there, became the IT manager, etc. And then moved on from there into more support roles, support management, etc. And that's how I got into communities about 12 years ago. So, and that was with a company called CA Technologies. Many folks know it as Computer Associates. But after they were purchased by Broadcom back in 2017, it was kind of the writing on the wall for me to look around and do something different. So I stayed on a while with Broadcom and then eventually ended up here at Acumatica.
So I got to ask you about an hour north of San Francisco. In my experience driving
Well,
past San
that's no
Francisco,
traffic.
there's not much going on,
That's
right?
at midnight. That's
So like when you worked at Chevy's and then CA Associates, were those remote jobs? I'm curious.
no. Chevy's was very much, especially the corporate office at that time was in San Francisco, so I was commuting, and then for a while they were in Oakland, so commuting there as well. So no, long commute. And when I actually started with CA Technologies, um, they were up about 20 minutes from my house, so north of San Francisco, in a town called Petaluma, and had a little development office and support office there. And so that was a great break when I started with them, and only had to commute 20 minutes instead of an hour and a half plus each way. So
Oh,
yep.
interesting. So working at Acumatica, is this your first remote job experience?
It's not, because when I got involved with the communities at CA, they were at that time kind of pushing some folks. They were consolidating their offices and kind of shrinking them. And when on the communities team, most of the folks I worked with were in our New York office, and somebody in Austin, and we're kind of spread around. So I was the only person in Petaluma that on our team. So they're like, well, you're perfect to work remote if you'd like, because you don't work with anybody in this office anymore. You're not in support anymore. You're in the communities area. So so I started working remote then. And then as we transitioned over to Broadcom, they wanted us more in the office. So then I was more in the office. But again, my team was not there either. But but this is the first really full-time, hey, your remote job. And that was one of my requirements when I was looking was, hey, it's got to be remote. I'm not commuting anymore. I'm too old to drive 3 hours a day. It's just nuts. So, yeah.
It's funny. I think a lot of people, even before the pandemic, if they weren't working remote, they really
Mm-hmm.
were in a sense working remote, like you were doing. They might have been dealing primarily with people in other offices, right? So they might have physically gone to an office, but less and less were they actually working with people in that specific office, right? So it's not
Yep.
really, yeah, I think that's the case for a lot of people, especially in any type of back office role. This isn't really a new thing, even though we might be physically working remotely. We really have been working remotely for quite a while now.
Yep. Yep. For sure.
So maybe we could start. Thanks for that background, by the way. That's
Sure.
great. I love hearing the personal background of everyone, what angles they're coming at things from. Maybe we could start before we get into the Acumatica side with the CA associate stuff. So you mentioned community there.
Right.
What were you doing there, and how did you get involved with community there?
So this I would have been with CA about 4 years at this point. I was a support delivery manager. And as such, I had a matrix group of engineers all over the world that reported to me. And we did support for their project and portfolio management software, enterprise software. And I was getting a lot of escalations. And it just more and more as I looked at them, so many of them were escalations because they were big customers. They were the Walmarts, the B of A's, et cetera, that weren't we were taking too long to respond in their mind. And so they were just going to escalate because they knew the fastest way to get our attention. And I felt that so many of the issues were A, we couldn't get to them fast enough, but B, we had answers for them. They just couldn't find them. And so I went to our VP and I'm like, hey, Rob, you know what? Got all these escalations, you know about this. Is there anything that CA offers that is a little more proactive? We've got something where folks might be able to just Google for they've got an issue, they Google for it and try and find an answer and land somewhere and get some help. He's like, well, we've got a few folks that are starting up these communities. They came over with some acquisitions. CA loved to acquire companies. Came over with some acquisitions. They had these communities and they're trying to form it into one cohesive program for the larger company. And so I got involved with that team and never looked back. It was great. I really enjoy that proactive approach of helping people and seeing them go, oh my gosh, I just got an answer. It's so great. Thank you so much, everybody. And then especially seeing them come back and maybe grow and share their stuff with other, help answer someone else's question, or share a tip or trick or something like that. So yeah, that's what I got involved with CA. We had a great program there. We eventually grew to a team of 12, both online communities and regional user groups. I was in the part that was dealing with the online communities. We had 55 online communities across our products, many of them in product area type communities, such as service management, project portfolio management. These are different areas that I worked with. And then we had
Can I
folks
ask on that, you said 55, were there different websites for each one, or like different
so
forums in a website?
Yep, each one had their own site that you could go to, and then they're all all look the same, but because they're all on the same platform. So we had about 56,000 members in the online communities, and then we had about 120, 130 regional groups, some in North America, and then many in EMEA for localization, stuff that it was nice to have regional groups in their language. And then we had a group that worked with the regional groups as well. And then when we were acquired by Broadcom, that all changed, and our team went down to 2 people, and I took over most of the online communities and started looking elsewhere, like I mentioned. But we were a great team of 12. It was awesome.
Guys, real quick on the regional.
Sure.
So that was in-person gatherings.
Yes. Yep.
Okay. And I'm curious on that, just because you brought it up. Was it, do you know if there was a typical cadence? Was it monthly, quarterly? How often they would meet?
Honestly, it varied quite a bit. We had our most successful groups were honestly mostly in EMEA, because they'd been around a long time. They did have a cadence. They had a person over there on the ground who he was part of our team, but kind of worked with a lot with field marketing, that kept them really in a schedule kind of thing that they were used to. North America was a little bit different. We were trying to grow that. This was around 2009, 2010, when things kind of shrunk in the economy and people weren't traveling as much. So that kind of put a crimp in it. But we had some very successful, and they may still be very successful groups. One big one in New York, New Jersey, that one of the person who ran that I was very close to and would help her out. And that group was a couple hundred people. And they did quarterly events. And then once a year, they would do an event where they would include the larger online community, and we would broadcast part of their event online in the online community as well. So folks could join for an hour session of, a particular topic or whatever that was being presented live at the regional group, which was pretty cool. So yeah, we struggled a bit in North America, to be honest. So EMEA, they did pretty good. But
that's interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, it's always I always like to hear different people's experiences with trying to do in-person community. And I think when you say community nowadays, well, especially with COVID, right? But the first question is always, what are you talking about? In-person stuff? Are you talking about virtual stuff? I think it all falls under that umbrella of community. And what you're doing there now with the forums at community.acumatica.com is, in my opinion, probably what most people touch when they touch community, and they touch it with that Google search, right? They're looking for a question that they have. And I want to go back to something you said about how you never looked back. And I'm curious if you could, I have my own experience on this, but I'm curious to hear your experience. Describe the difference between, as a support person, working on a support case with a case number and one person on the other end. The difference in feeling between dedicating time to a support case versus dedicating time to content in a forum that could get picked up by Google and read by anyone. Describe kind of the difference in how that feels, working on a case versus working in an online forum.
For me, I fortunately long way away from cases, but I do often work with support engineers to try and help them get out of that case mentality of that they're going to treat a forum post as the same way, because they got to realize it's not meant to be the same. It's meant to be a place that you go into. You don't have an SLA. You're not trying to hit an hour mark that this has to be responded to, blah. You're not necessarily going to even be able to solve whatever question is there, right? And you aren't expected to. What you are expected to do is to go in and participate and see what the conversations are. And then if you have advice, give advice. As far as, we have rules of the road and guidelines and stuff in place on the community that everybody's supposed to abide by. Don't share, information that shouldn't be shared, company stuff and all that stuff. But it is open, it is Google searchable. So if you don't think that you could post it on LinkedIn, then you shouldn't post it in the community. It's an open place. And you can always say, especially for support folks, hey, you know what? This might be better taken offline, and let's open a ticket for it and work it there. We need, database information. We know all kinds of stuff that we might not want to put here. And then come back later and say, okay, we resolved this, and this, basically what we did. And so I don't know if that helps. That's how I see it in my mind is, you guys got to loosen up. It's not a support case. This is a discussion area. This is somewhere you can be a little more yourself and relaxed, and you're still out here dealing with customers, and you're open in the public. So realize that, but yeah.
Interesting. I hadn't thought about it from that part, that it's a different mindset when you approach it. I think for my own experience, I'll call it blogging versus working a support case. There was a bigger level of joy working on a blog post or a community post.
Yeah.
Just knowing that there was two pieces to it. One, just knowing that this could reach more people. And two, knowing that I could spend a little more time putting together a more comprehensive response, because now I have a link that I can send someone.
Yep.
Because I might get that support case again. It's very likely, right? And now I don't have to write up the whole thing all over again. I can just send them a link. And to me, there's just I don't know, it feels better. I feel like I'm actually advancing rather than stuck in the hamster wheel of just, the next case number, right? Starting over from scratch. I'm kind of building a knowledge asset that I can leverage in the future to make my job easier. And there's a certain level of joy, I feel like, that comes along with that.
Yeah, it's very much an informal knowledge base. I mean, there might be stuff that turns into a knowledge base article that could be referenced later by support, but otherwise, yeah, you're right. It's just this informal pot of knowledge that folks, can do a quick search, and hopefully they land in the community site. I mean, from our page views and everything that we see, they're coming, and it's great to see, because hopefully that also helps out our support folks, because if you see an issue and it's the same type of thing and it keeps coming in, you can answer that in the community, and hopefully that gets out to a bunch of people versus just, like you said, every case just coming in and it's the same thing and you're just repeating the answer and sending it out, and you've got no other way of doing that, right? Irina on our team, she posts many knowledge base articles out there and stuff as she sees these things coming into support, and as other people in support see them, and puts them together so that we can kind of help with that. So
no, that's cool. And I think another kind of transitioning to another thing that's good to see is just the fact that you exist and your position exists now. I think when Acumatica first launched community.acumatica.com, I was like, okay, we'll see how long this lasts, because they've had forums before, and even
right.
It didn't really go anywhere, and that's why I started augforums.com, because it's like I couldn't get it to go anywhere internally. But then they start community.acumatica.com, and it's like, okay, this looks nice, but how committed really are they to it? It's just another good idea that will die on the vine in a year. But the fact that someone at Acumatica created a position, now you've got an actual person dedicated to this. You're like the person behind community.acumatica.com now. That to me shows a level of commitment. Now you've got a salary well, hopefully a salary and, some
Oh, there's a
dedicated
salary. I don't
resources.
do it for free. I love it, but I don't do it for free.
Yeah, so, I mean, I think that's a big deal. So maybe, tell us, like, during the interview process, what kind of attracted you to the position, and what was kind of the vision that you had coming in of what you'd be doing?
What attracted me to the position was it was a little farther along than the CA communities were when I started there. But there was still so much opportunity to do more things, right? First of all, I spent most of my time as I first came in, kind of cleanup. And it's not to say that folks weren't in there trying to clean up before me and stuff like that, but with no dedicated resource, there, it kind of more existed, and it grew, and people were, asking and answering questions, and so that was good. But the chance to come in and clean something up and tighten it up, I'm very much I'm a relaxed person, but I very much like things orderly in a row and checked boxes and stuff like that. And I could see a lot of opportunity with the community to go in and just give a little shot in the arm to just perk it up a bit, to get it on track, and everything from, reporting opportunities that they weren't doing much with the reports or putting together reports for it, to clean up to make sure that everything was moving. So you could see stuff move and progress and stuff. So that was exciting. Also, the opportunity to start some programs. We don't have, right now we're looking at starting some webinars starting in March with different areas. I think we're going to, between you and I and everybody else here, we start with the distribution area and have, like a show and tell kind of thing that they do. So we're looking to start these up in like a monthly cadence as an offering to community members. I used to do that a lot at CA. I probably ran 6 or 7 webcasts a month, at least, from product management teams, et cetera. So a chance to do that here at Acumatica. Also,
Can I ask you on that real quick?
Sure.
Since you are at the webinars, I've seen a lot of the things listed on the events.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't gone through and watched a lot of the webinars, but they strike me as more like prospect salesy kind of webinars. I mean, is this different what you're talking about?
Yes, this is very, so what we wanted to make sure with the community was that it was also a hub for things happening at Acumatica, even if it was repeating stuff. So if you go to the events page at acumatica.com, the events there are also going to be listed in the community. So it's just another way to broadcast it out. And then if folks link from that community to that event, we track that, they came from community. So how much is community helping? So it's really right now, the events that are there are kind of just to help broadcast the events that Acumatica is doing on the events page. This is different. These will be community events that, we put up there on the events section. So
what is that? How do you, I mean, obviously you're still working it out, but like what would be like a distribution one? Is this like walking through how to use distribution? Is it more like a round table trying to field questions, which is always difficult? How do you foresee that first one shaping out?
Yeah, so we're loosely calling them show and tells right now. That could change. We're still working through it, but these are meant to bring folks together to share some experiences. So we've got the product team there, and they're going to share some stuff. I'll be honest, I think the first one's going to be around side panels. So they're looking to obviously product team, some customers and partners that have done maybe some neat things with side panels, bring them in as kind of a show and tell. And then anybody in the audience can chime in with what they've done and talk about it. So it's meant to be open mic. We are going to be recording it, so we're going to try and keep the lines at least clear, people can hear. But it's meant to be where folks can take themselves off mute and share stuff or ask questions about it, and obviously use the chat as well. So we're trying to make them more relaxed, less formal than an actual webcast that you might normally go to at acumatica.com.
Ooh, I like that. I like
Yeah.
informal.
Yeah, yeah, no, and that fits the community. That's what we want, for the community style. I mean, you're always going to have, the slick presentation and introducing, XYZ or whatever. Um, and here it is, and this is great. But these are meant to be more interactive, collaborative, invite customers, partners, all the members of the community and just share what we have. So,
So
yep.
what do you think it'll look like? Or maybe you don't know yet. It would be a Zoom call, or it'll be a, like, how do you do that? How do you get people on a call
So
together?
we are still working through a lot of this, but Acumatica uses Teams, Microsoft Teams, and Ring Central. We have decided to go with Teams. We feel we're not going to have the number. I think we can have up to 1,000 people in Teams. I'm sure we're never going to have that number. So I think we're good there. So we're going to do a Teams WebEx webinar. And with that, you've got the chat capabilities, and obviously we'll record and stuff like that. And then when we're done recording, we will probably put it up to our YouTube channel, and then we'll take that YouTube link and embed it into the community post and share it out with all of the community so that they can watch it, if they missed it.
Oh, great. Yeah,
Yeah.
that was the next question, which is probably the number one question that ever gets asked in a webcam. Is the recording going to be available?
Yes.
So maybe
Yes.
like an unlisted YouTube video, so it's not cluttering up the polished stuff on the channel, but it's something that you could link to in the community.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. That's
So,
cool.
yep. That's the
Very
plan so
interesting.
far.
Okay. Well, maybe it's not even a plan. Maybe it's a direction, right? I mean, we know this can change, but that's great to hear. I really like stuff like that. And with the same principle, right? It's like, I could try to get so-and-so from the product team on a phone call,
Mhm.
and it might take me a long time to escalate to that level. And then I get them, right? And boy, when you get to talk to someone that deep in on a specific area, you're like, I wish I could press record, right? And that's kind of
Yep.
essentially what you're doing here. And that's great. I really like that level of depth. And Acumatica has really created this kind of open community atmosphere. And it makes sense that you would be okay doing that kind of stuff. So I'm looking forward to seeing what you come out with there.
Well, you'll be invited. I hope to see you there.
Looking forward to it. So what about anything else like that? So you got that going. I'll go ahead. I'll let you keep going with some other things.
Yeah. So, and one of the couple things, we had Acumatica dipped toe in for user groups a bit. And I know you and I have chatted a bit. So we're looking to get that started back up again. So working with the user group board that exists right now, working with them, working with others, including yourself and others from Acumatica, et cetera, to get user groups up and going. So the hope is to start a couple pilot meetings, April, May-ish timeframe. So that's all TBD. Myself and the user group board are getting together actually this week, and then probably in the next couple of weeks again. But looking to get that revitalized and see if we can get some regional groups going again, especially now that pandemic seems to be easing. That was an obvious impediment before, to be like, hey, come join us live, guys. And everybody's like, no.
Like a brick wall that ran into.
So, and we all think there's real value to personal connections and people being able to meet each other, in a local group. You get to talk about stuff. I mean, online is fantastic, and obviously through pandemic, it's been a lifeline for many people. But to meet folks live, I think has benefits as well. And it is then a smaller group normally. You can bring in, these will be regional groups that are open to people local. So I'm not going to say private, but kind of private, right? So a smaller group of partners, customers, et cetera, Acumatica folks, employees, that can be in a smaller, group of people, and maybe they share a little bit more that they might not necessarily share with each other on an online community. I mean, it's kind of
Sure.
It's kind of weird to be talking real deep about your business and being like, blah, 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 blah. And then knowing that it's getting broadcast out to tens of thousands of people, maybe that's not what you want. So all the time. So a regional group and folks meeting, I think, together, looking maybe twice a year for the meetings, but it's really going to be up to the individual groups and the board, what that cadence is. But yeah, so not a lot more on that yet, but hopefully look forward to that in the next few months. I'm also looking to, we want to get more community members pulled into the MVP program. And even if it's, the developer MVP program that Mark runs here, even if it's, making special things or different things, not necessarily special, but some things that fit more for community members and things that they would like as a perk of being an MVP in the community versus kind of, we're developers and stuff like, maybe community members, many aren't as interested in hackathons, for instance, because they're not developers necessarily. So we're looking to expand that out, and I'm going to be pulling in our most active community members over the next month into a private group to kind of talk about what we'd like to do that, how we'd like to do that, and cooperate with that. And that group will also cooperate on future topics they might want to see for web, these show and tells and stuff like that, things that they would like to see on the site. So I'm going to be pulling together a little advocacy group to start that. And so that's over the next month. So those are some of the things I'm working on. And then of course, just making sure that day to day the community is, being responsive and it's a, when people land there, that it's a good experience for them. We really want their experience on the community to be good. One of the things that and if I'm rambling on, just jump in, Tim.
No, this is great. Keep going.
Well, I get too deep into metrics, but one of the things that drew me to community from support was that somebody could ask a question and somebody else, not an employee, anybody else could respond, and this person could walk away with an answer, right? And so the biggest thing for me with a community is that first and foremost, most people come there because they have a question. And they stay for other things. They might stay for events and blah, blah, blah. But if they don't get an answer to that question or some kind of response, especially if they feel like they just put it there and they were ignored, then they leave. I'd leave. And it'd be tough for me to go back because I went there before and no one even responded to me or anything. So one of the goals that we've put in is to make sure that there is a response given, and we have a metric for that. But I won't share it necessarily, but to make sure that people get a response. And then over time, make sure that as best we can, at least 3/4 of the time, they actually get an answer that works for them. So get response quickly, and eventually get an answer. So that's something that I work daily to make sure that we're doing, and we do keep, we report on. So, and I'm accountable for.
Interesting. So you're really going for like 75% of the time, 3/4 of the time.
How are you putting out numbers? I didn't say numbers.
Oh, I thought you said 3/4 of the time.
I know. I was trying to not be too specific, but
no, but that yes. You're aiming high is what it sounds like. You're serious.
Yeah, and 75% is I have found to be the norm. I've done that in my previous companies. You want an answer rate of 75%, and a lot of that can be cleanup too. So oftentimes folks will come in and ask a question, and hey, this is just a little public service announcement to anybody that's asking questions in our community. Please, if you ask a question and you think you got an answer, please mark it as an answer, because that saves me going in, because I'm eventually going to go in later, a month or two later, and be like, okay, this has an answer, and I'm going to have to mark it. So that's part of the cleanup to get to that 75%. So the more we can teach people, hey, you know what, good practice is pat the person on the back that gave you the answer, give them a thumbs up, and mark it as an answer. But yeah, so 75% is our goal, and we are actually hitting that. We're very close to that right now, so that's great. I'm proud of that.
No, yeah, that's amazing. I would not have thought that high. Another number I would not have thought that high, and I'm pretty sure it got announced at Summit. I think John Roskell said 10, or maybe it was Sanket
Mhm.
said 10,000 users or people in the community forums,
Yeah,
somewhere around there.
I've actually just been watching it today. It's funny because when they did it, we had like 10,400 or something. So we just said 10,000 plus. And I'm looking at it today and it's at 10,997. So I'm waiting for it to turn over. I'm like, maybe it'll turn
Maybe
over
during
during
our
the podcast
conversation.
to 11.
That'd be cool.
So we're at about 11,000 right now. Yep.
And this means someone has to consciously go and sign up, or just by becoming an Acumatica customer, they automatically get added.
You do need to go in and register. So if
Okay.
you have an Acumatica account that you would log into SSO.acumatica.com, you would use that to sign into the community. The first time you sign in, that automatically adds you to that 10,000 plus number, and then you're in. But it isn't just customers and partners that have a login. It's also, you can be a customer or whatever that is not, you don't have a support login necessarily, but you're still a customer using the product. You can get in as a registered guest. So then you would just register on the site. The community
Yeah,
is
that's
complete.
me. That's me. I have
Yeah,
no contractual relationship with
I know,
Acumatica, but
I
I
know,
still
I
have a
know. Maybe
login
we're working
on
on
the
that,
account.
Tim. I'm
Yeah, no, it's
sorry.
fine. I like that. I still have a way to get in. I'm not a partner, not a customer, but
Yeah,
yeah, a lot of people don't realize that, especially like on an MYOB or an OEM product or something like
yeah.
that, or they're just, looking to learn more about it. Yeah, you can get in there.
Yeah, there are a couple of caveats, and I know you're aware. I mean, the community is open, so you don't even need to register or log in to see all the content that is available publicly. But there is content in the knowledge base content and in the ideas content that is currently for partners and customers and obviously employees. So a registered guest, if you did register, you wouldn't be able to get into that content. But otherwise, most of the content, which is in the discussion forums, is completely open to everyone.
Well, and
So
that's cool to hear that the 10,000, well, let's just call it 11,000 now. The
yeah,
11,000 number is conscious decisions. I was wondering that myself. I was like, that's a high number, but maybe it just everyone automatically gets enrolled. Sounds like all 11,000 had to make that conscious decision to jump on the community.
yes,
That's
yeah.
cool.
I mean, it's every community I've worked with, it's always been an opt-in type thing. And part of that is, for GDPR and other reasons, but we can't, people are going to get notifications unless they go in and turn off their notifications, and we're not just going to automatically sign them up. At this point, we don't do it for something that they didn't buy into, I guess. So
Oh,
yeah,
so that makes that number even more impressive, I guess, what I'm going
yes,
for.
yep,
That's great. And sounds like it's climbing, it's climbing fast. It's already
yeah.
11,000.
We're looking at about, and our goal is actually slightly higher than this, but we're currently at about 400 plus new members a month. So yeah, talk to my bosses and boss's boss, and he'd like to see that 5 times as large. So we're going to work on that, but yeah, we'll get there. So yep.
I want to go back to the question part. So like,
Mhm.
you're going for this question answer type of metric, which, as you said, is like the first thing someone's coming there for. And I totally agree. And so that's what you want to make sure you're delivering first. How do you though avoid, like I've experienced this on Stack Overflow. So Stack Overflow is a very developer focused website, and it's very question answer oriented. And it's got I don't know if you've ever tried posting on a Wikipedia article. Wikipedia is like even more this way. It's like you feel like you put something out there and then this mob jumps on you and like tears it apart. Stack Overflow is not as bad, but it's
Uh,
similar to like, if you post something that's not right on, you're going to get like nailed for it, right? How do you strike a balance between uh, just going for the perfect answer versus encouraging contributions that maybe aren't perfect, but at least, you want the person to come and try again and not feel like they got their hand slapped, with attempting an answer. How do you personally kind of go for striking that balance?
um, it. I think it's a different. The community is a different environment just on its surface. It's not. I get what you're saying about Stack Overflow and the wiki part and how structured and how people expect people that are in there to know what they're talking about. And I think for the most part, what I see in the community is people that are helping there, especially partners, employees, other customers, have all been new to the product at some point, and they just seem much more relaxed and easygoing and gentle on people, I guess I would say. I very rarely see anything that even comes close to, did you search? Or did you, I mean, that,
That's a very Stack Overflow kind of response.
yeah, did you even use the search? And I don't see that. And yes, and so what I do see is people encouraging other folks by saying, okay, you know what, there's actually, here's a community post that talks about this and blah blah blah, or a knowledge base article kind of thing. Check this out and maybe this will answer your question. Now, as we go along with that same maybe individual, and it becomes obvious that maybe they could use some Acumatica Open University training on some subject or something like that, that we might gently say, hey, there's some training courses here. So I see folks do that all the time, all the time as well. So it's a very encouraging, I think it's a very comfortable and encouraging environment. How do I influence that? Well, I try and really pat on the back the people that are exhibiting those behaviors. And I also try and encourage the new folks that are coming in with comments or whatever. Hey, did this answer your question? Or, hey, if you have something more to share with this, you could share, blah, 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 to kind of make them feel a little more welcome and safe and secure. So I don't know if that helps answer, but yeah.
No, I think it's good. I like your word gentle. I would say that's what I see as well. And maybe it does just have to do with the audience, that it's not, it's not really the website or some kind of technical thing you have in place that stops that. It's more just the people, right? It's people helping people. It's not mostly not developers, which it's just different mindset, right? You're not there to like get any warm and fuzzies on Stack Overflow. You're there to get the code snippet. Whereas when you're describing business problems and you're doing something in an ERP realm, it's just a different audience, and maybe it has more to do with that. But I see the same thing. Gentle is a good word for it. I like that.
Yep. We got a good group out there. I love working in there. It's fun.
Yeah, that's cool. So yeah, you're tracking a lot of metrics. You also, I'm going to back into, you also mentioned user groups. So I'm going to try, I think you said piloting maybe in March or April. So I'm going to call this not a pilot. It'll be more like,
we were talking April, May, but yeah.
April, May. Okay. So I'm going to try something next week here in Columbus, Ohio. Not quite a pilot, more of a, I don't know what to call it, just to try it out and see what happens.
Folks, come have lunch.
Well, actually that's where I'm going with this. But what do you see as like, and I realize that I think your main role is on community.acumatica.com. Correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, you're like a piece of the user group side. You're not like the authority on the user group side, but what are you seeing on the user group side? My view on what I'm trying next week, just to see, is this even an option, is I'm exploring what's the bare minimum you need to start something locally in your area. The first thing you need is a place, right? And I'm using the place that I work at. It's a co-working place. I can book a room for $100. So I started there. And other than a place, I'm exploring to see if you can do it without anything else. And the biggest one is doing it without food. And we're going to see how people respond. It might not go over well, but I'm curious on what you're seeing. What would you say are the fundamental things that you need to start an in-person gathering?
Yeah, I think that you need a group of people that are in the area that you already have, that are interested in the same thing. So if you have, even if it could be a vertical, so you've got a bunch of people that are in construction or something like that using, and you would like maybe to get them together, or maybe it's not. But they've got to have an interest to collaborate locally with other folks. And again, it could be that they really just want to be able to share experiences and or learn about others' experiences that they don't want to do on an online public space, but to get to meet and talk to folks and just have, even ad hoc conversations around different topics, I think is great. Obviously having a space, and this is where Acumatica, again, we're still working through it, but this is where Acumatica, I believe, can help, is if a partner could have a space, a customer could have a space, but Acumatica could have an office space there that could be, used wherever the group is. Have some budget for some food. I think my personal belief is Acumatica will probably be able to help with that. I don't, have anything in stone right now, but I think that is something that can be helped with. What resources would these folks in the group like to see, talk with them? Is it somebody from product management? Is it some, what would they be interested in, and what are their special needs right now? And Acumatica can be part, we can help resource. We've, especially if we're doing, in areas that we have an office, such as in Seattle or in, the Southeast, like Atlanta or something like that, someplace that we've got folks locally that could come from Acumatica and participate, we can help with that. So those are some of the things I see.
I like those. Food budget, I like those. That's great. I also like the idea of contributing someone with expertise. And in my opinion, it doesn't even necessarily have to be local. It could be any, you could be gathering anywhere in the world. And if someone from Acumatica popped on for 30 minutes to just kind of get going, I feel like that's always the hardest part, right? It's like people show up, you stand around, what are we doing here? You need something to kind of kick it off. And that would be interesting. So if it's some kind of, and maybe at that point, you kind of get the question, well, does it even have to be live? Could it be a recorded thing? I don't know, but that's interesting that I hadn't considered. Maybe Acumatica would even provide a product manager, in a certain area to present something. That's cool.
Yeah, definitely. That's where we're going to be able, I think, to contribute the most. I think, we want the customers and partners on the ground that are actually there to be the ones kind of driving this. I think initially it'll probably honestly be partners that drive it because a little bit more, but we really want the customers that are in the area and are meeting in the groups to, step forward and be like, hey, this is what I'd like to see. How about if we do this, and cooperate with everyone to get these going. So haven't had one yet. But it's coming, and I hope yours is successful, and we can learn some from yours, and then work together going forward to see what else we can do and get these moving. So
that's cool. I'm also curious your thoughts then on you mentioned the board. So there's an Acumatica User Group's board of directors. I think that's the official name for it, right?
Yeah.
Board of directors.
They've been around for a while, and for years have put in time and volunteered to get these going. It's just through different circumstances. It hasn't happened, or it started and then stopped abruptly. And then of course, pandemic squashed everything. But yeah, so there is the board, and that's, you want to have a group of people that overall, first can help get things started and seed things. So, might be somebody or a couple people on the board in their areas to get some pilot groups going. But then overall to make sure that we have consistency, that we have, we know what each group is doing. We know that these groups meet quarterly, these guys meet once a year, have some kind of overall, not control, but just cooperation with the different groups, the regional groups, and then be able to offer consistently through the board, suggestions, guidance, governance, that kind of stuff for the groups. And then whatever resources the board can secure too. It might be that someone on the board has a resource that they can pull over to help someone who otherwise wouldn't have known that they could get this resource. So that's
I like the way
idea.
you're describing that. It's resonating with what I've been reading up on. And maybe we could compare notes on this in the future. I've been reading up on how Alcoholics Anonymous runs things, and it's pretty
Okay.
interesting because they don't function as a like top-down control type of
Hmm.
organization. Basically, if you have two people who want to stop drinking, that's your starting point, and you just meet wherever you can, and you can call yourself an Alcoholics Anonymous group that way. And what's interesting is when you dig into some of the details, they've got a really extensive like FAQ on their
Hmm.
website, and a lot of it comes down to finances. And one of the specific ones that was really interesting to me is if you're going to take, like, at an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting, it's common to pass around a basket and you just put some
Hmm.
money in to help pay for the room, help pay for the food. And you need a bank account to put that in, right? So then you need a tax number. And they have some guidance on how to do that. But what's interesting is it's not connected to the Alcoholics Anonymous organization. You're not
Hmm.
tying in from a legal perspective or from a financial perspective. And they said on there that most of the groups, more than 50%, do not even register as a nonprofit organization. And I thought that was really interesting because they've been very successful with that model.
Right.
And when you hear about like a national board, you think about then how Alcoholics Anonymous functioned. It's mainly to put out content and, like you
Hmm.
said, guidance. It's
Yep.
not necessarily controlling. Well, it's not controlling this global enterprise, that governs the details of every local gathering. It's more, I like your word for it, guidance. And
Yep.
it's yeah, it's interesting to learn from that, and it's interesting to hear you kind of describe it similarly.
Yeah. It's and then they board would also help with things like the website. How do we want the group sites to look like, starting out or going forward, and that kind of thing. So, you want somebody that's um, a little bit above the ground to kind of work with the, me and stuff on the online stuff as well, because there will be online, you know, portion to this. Each of these groups will have a site on the community's site as their own group that they can have discussions in and post their events coming up, and of course we can from the online community part, we can help promote those things. Say, hey, if you're in the Columbus region and you're interested in attending the group, hey, this is for you. Here it is. So that's one thing too, where we kind of go back and forth and help each other out. So between
Yeah, that's
the
huge.
groups and the
Like,
communities.
I was just looking at meetup.com. I've used
Hmm.
meetup.com in the past, and I think it used to be free, but now you can't post an event without being on a paid plan. So just having that from Acumatica would be awesome. Having a dedicated page where you could
Yep.
collect people who are interested and be able to hit them all with an email notification, including being able to have a discussion on top of it. But at a bare minimum, just to list your next event and even to be able to track like an RSVP to know
Yep.
who's coming, like a meetup.com can do, that bare minimum would be huge. That would be awesome to have.
Yeah, and I have to look into it a little bit more, but I believe the events are the same on the groups, and that they do have the RSVP function. So we will be able to see, who's decided to come and who hasn't. So, but yep. So
Very
yeah,
cool. Very cool. So user group thoughts. Quick time check. We got 3 minutes till the end of our meeting. Do you have another meeting coming up?
I do actually that I need to get ready for in
All
about
right, no
five,
problem.
10 minutes.
I'll
So
I'll let you run. Well, any other thoughts you want to wrap it up? This has been great. I think it's been a good excuse to talk to a greater level of detail than we have so far. And then, hey, might as well record it for everyone else to listen to. But any other things that come to mind that you might want to wrap up with?
no, just any folks who have not checked out the community already, it's at community.acumatica.com. If you don't remember that, just go to the acumatica.com website, and it's under the resources there, and you can just click in there real quick. But yeah, come check it out. Please join if you haven't already. Please check out what folks are talking about there. Um, we have private messaging there, so you're welcome to private message me. I'm always around there, and introduce yourself, say hi. I love to chat. So yeah, so come check us out, and of course look for these new exciting things that we start to happen the next few months here, the user groups and also the community meetups that we have. So yeah,
This
that's
is
it.
cool. I just did a quick check on your LinkedIn profile. It says you started there October 2021. So you're
Yep.
less than 6 months in, and you've
Yes.
already got a lot going on. So thanks for taking the time, and great
Sure.
to have you in the Acumatica
Thank you,
community
Tim.
at large. Thanks for taking the time today.
Well, thank you, Tim. Thank you, everybody. This has been great.
All right. Well, that's it for now. We'll catch you on the next episode of augforums.com Real Talk. Thanks for listening and take care.